Why should you visit thechairshot.com? Thechairshot.com is your home for hard-hitting reviews, news, opinion, and analysis with attitude. Why? Because you're smarter than the average fan. Thechairshot.com. Always use your head.
And welcome to Ket's Angle. It's Ket Johansson here, and today got a very special guest that we're going to be delving into his career, his company with NYPW and the Malaysian Pro Wrestling scene. It's Shaukat. Shaukat, thank you for coming on.
Oh, it's my honor to be here.
Now, really excited about this. When you reached out after our message saying like, "Hey, drop me a message," what I want to do is really spread the light on what other wrestling there is out there around the world and get to learn about the Malaysian pro wrestling scene, help other people learn about it, and you've got a lot of exciting stuff coming up which we'll delve into. So to start off with, like, about yourself, why professional wrestling?
All right. So first thing I remember is I started watching wrestling when I was 4 years old, all the way back in 1992. Back then, my older brother would always rent out these VHS tapes of WWF back then. And the very first match that I watched was The Undertaker versus Kamala in a casket match. And being a kid, when I watched that match, I remember just falling in love with it because it was two larger-than-life characters going at it in the ring.
Yeah.
You have one Ugandan giant and one undead cowboy. And somehow at the age of 4, I kind of understood what wrestling was, and my brother kept on renting those VHS tapes, and I kept watching it. So me and my whole siblings, 5 of us, all of us, we grew up watching wrestling, and we watched it together and fell in love with it. But I was the only insane one who went and say, "Hey, I want to become a pro wrestler one day." I think it started out like how everybody does, with me and my brother playing pro wrestling. Like we used to play fight, and I used to play fight with my pillows as well. So only only when I was in the age of 23, I decided like, you know what, maybe it's time to try this out seriously, because since the passion is there, why not?
Yeah, man. So what was the scene like in Malaysia for somebody that was interested in breaking through in professional wrestling?
So this is the interesting story, because back then there wasn't a wrestling scene before I started.
Yeah.
So year by year, I would always try to search up on the search engine for pro wrestling schools in Malaysia, and I couldn't find any. So in 2013, I remember I won a contest where I had the opportunity to meet Booker T and have lunch with him. So I asked for his advice. I said like, I really want to be a pro wrestler, but there's no reputable schools in Malaysia. There's not even a scene in Malaysia. So what would your advice be? And he told me that, you know what, man, you should be the first guy who do it, because if you don't start it, then nobody else will, because you've been searching for it for like over 15 years now. So I think you should take the first step. And I listened to his advice. And here's the other interesting part, is that I actually started out pro wrestling in Malaysia being self-trained. I got the DVD set from Tom Howard, and I also got Dr. Tom Pritchard's syllabus set. So I started training on my own, because I'm actually a stuntman by profession in the film industry. So I would say that being a stuntman is not too far away from being a pro wrestler. So I picked up very fast, and that's when I started with Malaysia Pro Wrestling.
Wow, like to teach yourself, like, especially you mentioned you had like the syllabus of Dr. Tom Pritchard. Did you find it hard or testing at times? Like, did you think, yep, this is still what I'm going to do? Or was you thinking, is it really going to work?
To be honest, when I first started, I was doubtful that it was going to work, because it's so different in other countries where wrestling is a thriving industry. There's a lot of schools and reputable trainers. Like for me myself, I had to try and try things out and make sure that they're correctly done. I didn't have
Yeah.
anyone showing me the ropes or telling me like what is right and what is wrong. But thankfully, nobody got hurt throughout the entire process because I was able to break down the moves based on stunts, my stunt experience.
Yeah.
And the best thing about Tom Pritchard's syllabus is that he focuses more on psychology and storytelling.
Yeah.
And that pretty much made me mature a lot faster in pro wrestling because from what I understand, a lot of people in the independent scene, like they focus more on what to do in the ring, like what cool stuff should I pull out this week and whatnot. So like for me, the way I train was very, very old school. And my students picked up very fast as well because we grew from just 4 students. We put on our first show and we impressed the audience who came. It was just like 80 of them first show. It was just
Yeah.
like a backyard kind of show. And we grew from people making fun of us on the internet to now we have about like 50,000 fans on Facebook, and we have a lot of subscribers on Patreon. We have guys watching from the UK, Australia, and US, and it's a crazy scene now. We draw 300 to 500 crowd easily.
Wow. And how do you like? You should take some sense of pride. Like, essentially, that makes you like the Godfather of Malaysian wrestling.
That's true. That's what they call me.
So how to have that like reputation and to go from right, I just want to do it. There's no schools, right? I've got 4 students, right? I've got some more students, and now you're drawing 300 to 500 people in live attendance, and you're getting watched all around the world. Like, how does that feel?
It feels amazing to know that I'm able to grow something from nothing and make it into something that's thriving. And we have like a deep roster now of about 30 plus wrestlers, and most of them have been going out. Like they have been wrestling in other countries outside of Malaysia as well. For example, one of my students, I think she's very, very well known. Her name is Noor Phoenix Diana.
Yeah.
She she's known as the world's first CJB pro wrestler. She went viral to a point where when WWE's Sheamus came down to Malaysia to promote WWE, like he recognized her in the crowd and called
Oh
her to
well.
the front and raised her hand. And it's a crazy thing that WWE guys recognize my students, and it
Yeah.
pretty much shows that I've been doing things the right way.
Yeah, no, 100%. And regarding like Nordiana, she came over to the UK for Pro Wrestling Eve, which is one of the best all women's one of the best wrestling companies, period, regardless of gender. And she was received really well by the audience there. And so how does that feel to know that she's blown up that well and she's gone to these other countries like the UK and she's proved that she can essentially hang with the best of them?
It was a proud moment for me. Like I actually had tears at the corner of my eye when I watched her debut on Fight TV,
Yeah,
and where I read the reviews of fans who watched the show and watched live. A lot of them were saying good things about her, like how she had something special in her to a point where she even outshined some of the vets.
yeah,
And this was a collective thought coming from different fans, and it is something that made me proud because, like like I said, like I've always been doubtful of myself because I'm self-trained. Like I never knew what I'm teaching them is right or wrong. And so apparently, when she made it, and I read those comments and everything about her, kind of makes me feel proud of myself, and I'm also proud that I'm able to do my students justice by allowing them to perform and get recognized.
yeah. And speaking of like, whilst we're on the topic of your students, I believe Emman the kid, he's in Australia at the moment, working on the Australian scene. So again, like I know Emman's somebody who worked in the ring, and now he's in Australia doing really good things, not just used by 1 or 2 promotions, but more or less every single promotion in Australia are using him. Like, what was your thoughts on the big 2019 that he had in Australia?
I feel that he definitely made us proud in Malaysia. he had his amazing match with Robbie Eagles as well, not just once but twice, and those matches were amazing matches. And I loved how he was able to change the mind of the doubters and naysayers, because every time when he made his debut in certain promotions, they don't know who he is yet. So when they watch him, they would obviously cheer for him because he's very small and he looks like a kid. He's a baby in the ring. And it's only his fourth year, I think, training in wrestling. And it's something that I'm very proud of, to see him flourish like this and being on the radar of a lot of promotions in Australia. But what made me proudest the most is that for someone who has trained for 4 years, he's able to hang with guys like Robbie Eagles and a lot of Australian vets. So it kind of shows that our training method works, and that pretty much is something that I need to be thankful for to Tom Pritchard as well.
Yeah. What was your reception when you was starting it? What was, say, your family or maybe your co-workers? You mentioned you was a stuntman, and Pro Wrestling Malaysia, everyone knows is WWE, and here you are thinking, you know what, I'm going to start my own promotion. I'm starting my own wrestling school. How was that received?
It was terribly received. Like for starters, the only person who was supporting me was my siblings, my sisters, and my wife.
Yeah.
But everybody else thought I was bonkers because it's pro wrestling. And sad thing is, the mainstream crowd, the mainstream audience only recognizes WWE, and
Yeah.
whatever we attempt to do turns out, according to them, is only an imitation of WWE. So it's something very difficult for me to break out of, especially because the first year I only had 4 students for the entire year. So I was struggling with rent, I was struggling with running costs because it was just 4 students.
Yeah.
And it was one of my first students was Emman the kid, and I had three more guys. And Emman he was a child. He was 13 when he joined Malaysia Pro Wrestling. And then the
Wow.
other three guys, yeah, the other three guys, one of them was skinny, the other two of them was out of shape. So it was very difficult for me to convince the audience that we had something serious going on. And I believe I was only able to convince them after our very first show. It was called
Yeah.
PG Mania. Yeah.
Wow. So when did things start changing? Like when people are actually you're getting the 300 to 500 crowd, because obviously that's not just built in a day. When did you start thinking actually we've got something special here?
I believe that we started picking up steam after our show called My PW Uprising. It was in 2016, so that's 2 years
Yeah.
after we've set up Malaysia Pro Wrestling. And that show, we had guys coming in from Singapore, Vietnam, and Philippines. So I kind of made it look like an international affair. We had a lot of other regional guys coming in. And in fact, I was actually one of the first few promoters who dared to bring in regional guys to a local show, because
Yeah.
it was something very risky, I'd say, especially because of the cost of the flight and everything. But I believe that if you want people to take you seriously, then you have to make something amazing for people to watch. And after we did My PW Uprising in 2016, that was when press started to notice us, and
Yeah.
they covered us, and we came out in newspapers and on the TV and whatnot. And that was when more and more fans started watching us and taking us more seriously.
Yeah. So going to like your career, what was it like when that first match you're in front of a crowd? Like how many people was in the crowd for that first match of yours, and how do you feel that went?
The first match was actually the very first official match that we had was a birthday party.
Yeah.
It's something that we have to do to get things started. But I was just in the zone because everyone who went and watched the show, nobody cared except for the children because it was something fun. But
Yeah.
all the adults were like making fun of us. They scoffed at us and whatnot. But I didn't care about that because like I focused on the kids who were entertained by what we were doing in the ring. So at first, I think my first match wasn't something that I'm proud of performance wise, but that's life. I mean, like we always laugh at the things that we do.
I don't think it ever is. Everybody that I've spoken to, when we talk about that first match, and they're like, yeah, don't really want to speak about that.
Exactly. So I think I've only matured performance wise all the way in 2018. It's like 4 years after I've started pro wrestling. But yeah, I mean like the first match we had, it was a birthday show, and then after the birthday show, it was a comic convention. Comic convention. It was pretty well received because wrestling is new in Malaysia back then. They
Yeah.
had only like cosplay stuff, and they have people performers coming up to do anime songs and whatnot. So when you suddenly have a pro wrestling show with a ring, everyone's bound to be attracted to it. So we had thousands of people watching us for that show. But I still wasn't proud of my performance back then. It was still something very cringy if I look at it back again.
Yeah.
But it's an amazing experience. Like we always learn from our past.
Yeah. Like you've gone on to, obviously you've got Malaysian Pro Wrestling, but you've also been working in other places around Asia. You've had Philippine Wrestling Revolution where you've worked for Singapore Pro Wrestling as well. What was it like when you've been contacted by these promoters and they're like, actually would like to fly you in, would like to bring you into our company? What was that like?
So when Malaysia Pro Wrestling first started, we started posting out all these highlight videos and whatnot. That was when we started getting noticed because a lot of them commended me on my striking in the ring because it looks very very brutal. But I pride myself for being one of those guys who look absolutely brutal in the ring, but I'm the lightest worker that you ever work with, and you'll have fun working with me as well because I make you look like you're about to die, but you don't feel anything.
Yeah.
It's pretty much comes from the stunt background of so I'm so used to controlling my limbs and everything and whatnot. So a lot of them took notice with my striking, and that was when they started wanting to book me. And I also believe that I have the look that a lot of people don't have in Southeast Asia, which is I'm
Yeah.
built and I have the facial expression and everything down, thanks to my stunt background as well. I've been on films and whatnot, so I think it kind of helps me with my performance as well. So they took notice of that and they started booking me. I have from Singapore. I've performed with SPW, Singapore Pro Wrestling, and Grapple Max. For Philippines, I performed with Manila Wrestling Federation and Philippine Wrestling Revolution. And every single time when I perform with them, they enjoy me being there. Um, and I've always been built as usually the co-main event or the main event, and I'm always in the main program with the superstars. So it's something very enjoyable to know that I started out from nothing to being one of the main eventers and the top draws
Yeah.
of the region.
How do you? What's it like being received by a different audience? Then, like I mentioned, Godfather of Malaysian Pro Wrestling, but you go to the Philippines or Singapore, and you're not that local boy anymore. Like, did it take some adjustment to when you first got in front of that different crowd, or was you received really well?
So I come with a reputation, being the godfather of Malaysia Pro Wrestling, so that pretty much carries weight. So every time when I make an entrance, especially in Singapore, they hate me because Malaysia and Singapore are neighbors, and like neighboring countries, we always hate
Yeah.
each other and whatnot. So I always come out to boos and cheers and whatnot. But thankfully for I think the beauty of Tom Pritchard's training is he focuses on psychology and storytelling. So I do believe that as long as your psychology and storytelling is solid, you are able to evoke the emotions of the audience accordingly. So usually I would come out with people cheering and booing me, but ending up with people chanting, "Please come back" at the end of my matches, like every single time, wherever I go. So I think that's a special trait that I have, and ever since then, I've been received amazingly. Like in Singapore, I'm such a big name there. People wait to see my matches. When I go to Philippines, I'm treated like a superstar. Like they have media interviews and whatnot lined up for me.
Yeah.
So it's amazing. It's an amazing experience to be this big in the region.
How I want to go to the stuntman stuff because that's something I think is really unique. Like, what made you get into being a stuntman?
Pro wrestling.
Yeah.
Because I've always wanted to become a pro wrestler, and unfortunately, there wasn't any school in Malaysia. So the closest thing I could get to is I first joined Muay Thai
Yeah.
kickboxing, and I fought professionally with a record of 28. 28 fights in total, professional fights.
Oh,
And I fought with guys from Thailand, from Myanmar, and whatnot. And my record is 24 wins, 3 loss, and 1 draw. I'm pretty prideful of my professional Muay Thai results,
yeah,
because it's something that carries weight into pro wrestling as well, especially when you have shoot experience. And
yeah.
then I have a pro MMA record of 4 fights as well, 3 wins and 1 loss before I retired. And
Wow.
so after I did all this fighting stuff, that was when I got interested in doing stunts, because I found out that pro wrestling is something like a live action stunt show, kind of.
Yeah,
So that was when I decided, you know what, I can't be a wrestler, so the closest thing that will work for me is going to the stunt industry. So that was when I started learning how to do stunts and whatnot. So I was often hired to do screen fighting and choreography and whatnot. So that was actually the place where I built my craft in striking and whatnot, because I'm able to make things look convincing without hurting my without hurting my
yeah.
partners. So I believe that my stunt background is a huge advantage in pro wrestling, and it has been commended by people from all around the world.
Oh no, that's really interesting. So going back to like the working with different territories and things like that, I've seen through like social media that's something you're big on, is trying to bring these different territories within Asia together, working together. I think you had something lined up with a company in China before all this happened as well. What what's your thought process on getting all these companies working together?
All right, I love this question actually, because this is something that I don't get asked often, and it's something that I'm very passionate about as well, as you've seen in my social
Yeah,
media and whatnot. Um, I do believe that pro wrestling in Southeast Asia is, we are all babies. We are in our infancy stage. Like the oldest promotion is like 6 years old. 6 years old
wow,
is nothing as compared to yeah, it's nothing as compared to the industry in the UK, United States, or Australia. So 6 years in the business pretty much means you are very, very young. And I do believe wholeheartedly that if all of us want to thrive together, we have to do it together. We have to support each other. So that was actually one of the first reasons why I brought in guys from Philippines, Singapore, Vietnam to come on my first show, because I wanted to prove to everyone else that, you know what, if we work together, all of us can strive together. And that was actually true, because when I brought in guys from PWR, that was when everyone else in Singapore and Malaysia knew about PWR, and they started following PWR. And then they started following Vietnam Pro Wrestling, because I brought in Guerrero Saigon and Dick Togo, who owned the Vietnam promotion as well.
yeah,
So that promotion got pretty well known as well by Malaysians and Singaporeans, and the Singapore scene. They found out about Malaysia, Philippines, Vietnam, and whatnot, because it's such a small community. Everyone follows everything. So I do believe that the best way that all of us can thrive is for all of us to help each other, instead of trying to, well, my promotion is the best promotion, or my promotion is the best promotion. Like,
yeah,
I don't get, I don't understand why there have to be some sort of competition among us. Like, it's okay to have healthy competition in the sense where, you know what, this promotion has the best marketing strategies,
yeah,
so maybe we should try to top them up. Or this promotion has the best quality wrestling. You know, boys, you guys need to work harder, and we need to look as good as them. One of the things that I always use to motivate my boys is this method. You know, like I always tell them, like, look, boys, if you look at Singapore Pro Wrestling, you'll see that most of the wrestlers there are in shape. Like, all of them go to the gym. They look like actual wrestlers and whatnot. So I think you guys, all of us, need to step up. You guys need to go to the gym. We need to look like them, because, so that's my idea of good
yeah,
competition. But we have a lot of very negative and toxic stuff going around in the industry in such a young age. 6 years is nothing. So it saddens me to see a lot of these promotions are actually bickering among each other rather than trying to support each other. So I'm such a strong believer of all of us having to work with each other for us to actually branch out even more.
yeah,
And I do hope that one day that everyone gets on the same page and try to help each other, even the ones within the country. You know, like how Philippines, we have PWR and MWF in the same country.
Yeah.
The same city as well.
Oh
So
wow.
yeah, I do understand they might have that competition when it comes to drawing fans and whatnot, but I do believe that there's a way we can discuss things out. Like, you know what, maybe my show I'll be doing it this month, yours maybe the following month, or maybe like 2 weeks apart and whatnot. Because in my experience, I've performed in MWF and PWR back to back. Like
Yeah.
on a Friday at MWF and on a Saturday at PWR. Both shows sold out, no problems whatsoever. So I don't see the reason why any of us should have any beef with each other. We just need to help each other and try to thrive together.
No, I'm glad you said that because in the UK, the scene has kind of blew up. You've mentioned two promotions in the same city. We've got the same where some smaller cities still might have 3, 4 different promotions working in there, and you do get some of the bickering and the politics, shall we say. But then you get some companies where they'll try and use, again, a bit like yourself, just local regional talent. Whilst all the other companies may want to bring in all the imports of the bigger names, they're focusing on the homegrown talent and building the foundations up there, and then they're wanting to work with other companies. So it's good to see that you've got that mindset yourself, because if all these different markets are growing alongside your company, then it's going to be lucrative for yourself. Your company may be able to tour, or you're going to have a lot more people aspiring to be professional wrestlers because the scene's more noticeable and it isn't some unattainable fantasy which WWE may have seen at the beginning. So it's really good to see that you've got that mindset.
Thank you. I appreciate you appreciating me.
Did you get any backlash regarding any of it? Like you said, some companies are bickering, and here you are trying to bring everybody together. Have you had any resistance, and how do you work around that?
I like, no one has said it verbally to me, but I do believe that I've got some pretty good heat on myself for trying to become the peacemaker. But I think it comes with the territory. Like even great guys in history, like for example Martin Luther King, for example, he has amazing ideologies and whatnot, but there are still haters for him. I'm not comparing myself to the great Martin Luther King, but what I'm saying is that it comes with the territory. So I do believe that I have some heat with me to a point where I believe some of them distance themselves from me because like I can actually feel that, like, being distanced, like they used to be close with me, but when I start preaching about, how we need to work together and whatnot, and then they'll start distancing themselves from me because they don't want to get hit because of associating themselves with me. So that's why I do believe wholeheartedly, because like before I started preaching this, I didn't talk about it mainly because I didn't have a voice back then. But these days I have a lot of followers, and I'm very influential in the industry as well. So I'm starting to become more brave, and I don't think that it's a bad thing, because I'm sharing things that I am passionate about, and I believe that it's something positive for everyone. Like you mentioned, like how it is in the UK.
Yeah.
So I do understand why they are distancing themselves from me. And I understand that because it's such a young industry, everybody still wants to get booked everywhere. So I do understand that they don't want secondhand hit coming from me. But it's okay. I'm fine with it.
Do you look at like Japan as a business model? Obviously, you've got different companies like All Japan, New Japan, Stardom, and they've all got their own identity as well. Like, do you look at Japan as the way to mold Malaysian Pro Wrestling? Like, what can people expect if they watch MYPW?
I think one of the unique traits that Malaysia Pro Wrestling has is I try to incorporate the realism of Japanese wrestling with the storytelling of Western wrestling. Because like if you focus too much on Japanese wrestling, it's mainly two guys fighting to win a match.
Yeah.
They don't focus much on storylines and storytelling and whatnot. But if you watch Western wrestling, it's very dramatic. It's very storytelling centric, but they tend to be more spot focused rather than trying to create realism that two guys are actually going at it. So what I try to do is I try to mix the balance of realism based on my standard experience, as well as the storytelling of Western wrestling. And I think it's a beautiful combination because people are starting to buy into it. And like my work have been seen by guys outside in the States as well, and I've received nothing but positive remarks on our style of wrestling. Something that I'm very, very proud of. And speaking of Japanese wrestling, I do believe that it's a huge industry there, to a point where they even have this stadium. I think it's called a Korakuen Hall,
Yep.
where it rents out a whole wrestling venue for dojos and whatnot to do shows. So that's how huge it is. And I've heard that they have shows like on daily basis and whatnot. Um, but the thing is, just like in the States, New Japan is the biggest power there. So all the other promotions are trying their best to find ways to try to thrive as well. Which brings me to I've tried to strategize by approaching all these smaller promotions like AJPW, Noah, and whatnot. And I've received response from Pro Wrestling Noah, and
Yeah.
they are interested to talk with me to see how we can work together because they admit that they are in trouble and they admit that New Japan is the king of Japanese pro wrestling. So they have to branch out as well. So I'm very interested to know that what might come out of this.
No, that'd be really interesting. Like Noah and DDT have just kind of joined forces. Like they've got the same owner now, and I think they're trying to do a lot more. Like you said, a lot more different stuff to make it different. And I think they have been a little bit more bolder. I believe I think it was Noah that ran Corkin Hall alongside one of the days of Wrestle Kingdom at the exact same time, and that takes some balls in itself to try and do that. So hopefully, like once this pandemic's over and things have the restrictions have been lifted and stuff like that, it'd be really interesting to see what had come from yourselves and Noah working together. And I think it'd be another piece of that puzzle of you being like a hub of working with all these different promotions in Asia.
Yep, like we have like you mentioned previously, like I'm trying to work with MKW from China. So if I can get guys from India, I can get guys from Japan as well. Then pretty much solidifies our position in Asia as like the peacemaker,
Yeah.
trying to grow the industry here.
No, that's good. I want to go back to what you were saying to your students of, hey, look at Singapore Pro Wrestling, they're all in shape and things like that. And that's not just something you're saying like just off the cuff. It's something you've kind of lived by as well. On social media, you showed a picture from yourself from April 2018, and then fast forward 2 years. And whilst we're talking, like when I edit, there will be some picture that everybody can see right now. But from that transition in just 2 years, like what inspired that? Like what made you think? Because it's not easy work.
The first thing that I had in mind was because I'm trying to create this character called the Prophet of Pain. He's not an actual prophet, but he coins the term prophet mainly because he delivers pain, that kind of thing. So like for me, I do believe that when I try to get into a character, I would treat it like how I would get into character when I'm filming a film and whatnot.
Yeah.
So like I would sit in front of the mirror and I take a look at myself and I ask myself like, do I look like the Prophet of Pain? And the first thing that I thought to myself, like, nope, I don't look like the Prophet of Pain because in 2018 I was overweight. I had very high percentage of body fat. My muscles were not showing, and professional wrestling is a very very visual business, and humans are also very visual creatures because they tend to bet on the guy who has more muscles. Unfortunately, like psychological wise, people believe that you can fight as long as you're built like a tank.
Yeah.
So it's something that comes to the business. And I told myself, like, hey, if I want to get into character, I have to lose the fat and I need to get in shape and so I can portray it more effectively. And at the same time, that was the moment when I was telling my boys, I said, like, look, I'm going to go into this journey. I'm going to shred up and look like a proper wrestler and whatnot. I hope you guys can come along with the journey with me. So a lot of them, it's very difficult to motivate someone if they don't see something visual. So I
Yeah.
thought that maybe I should start first and go through the journey myself. And once I have something to show, maybe to follow along. And so my main aim was basically the first of all is to get into character, and second was to inspire my students as well. So years later, still having a hard time inspiring my students.
No, it can be hard, and like for inspiration, you mentioned you'd seen the transformation of Jinder Mahal, where Jinder before his WWE release, he didn't really have a physique that stood out, and then he came back, is one of the best shapes on the entire roster, and that led to him becoming WWE champion. Is that something that you look down for actually, and I need to emulate that?
Exactly. Jinder Mahal is one of my biggest inspiration when it comes to transformation, because his transformation was crazy. Like when he came back with that entire new look, everyone's head turned. He made headlines in every not just pro wrestling websites, but on sports news and whatnot, because he looked different, and the entire fitness community was talking about him. Even on YouTube, on Reddit, fitness community that do not follow pro wrestling. Everyone was talking about him. He was turning heads. So that pretty much proves that you need to have the physique to turn heads in pro wrestling.
Yeah.
So his transformation definitely inspired me, and I do believe that it had helped him tremendously as well, to get where he is today.
Yeah. So going back to your career again, I've seen you had matches with people like Tajiri. You've been in the ring with Hurricane Shane Helms. Like, I want to talk about that Tajiri match. Like, how did that come about, and what was that experience like for you?
All right. So during that period of time, I was lucky enough to find myself sponsors to have shows. So with sponsors, that was when I decided, like, you know what, since we have the money, let's go big, let's go crazy. So the first person I brought down was Shane Eric and Helms, and the next
Yeah.
person was Tajiri. And I believe wholeheartedly that I leveled up immediately after working with these two. Like, they changed my mindset on pro wrestling. They changed the way I work on pro wrestling. They taught me a lot of things during the time spent with them, because the both of them spent a week in Malaysia. So it was
Wow.
just me spending time with them and them coaching me and whatnot, giving me advice. And both of them had very great advice that made me mature and level up as a performer.
What was the advice that Shane Helms gave you then?
Shane Helms was the guy who taught me how, like, in pro wrestling, it's not about the things you do in the ring, but it's about the story that you want to sell and the emotion that you can evoke out of the audience. That is the most important aspect. And he also taught me like how to work better as a babyface, and how to work better as a heel, and how to construct a proper match, which makes a lot more sense. So he was very, very old school. Like he was the kind of guy who would always share with me wisdom about all his previous matches and whatnot. But he was the first person who told me, like, dude, I'm proud of you. You're self-trained. It surprised me that you're self-trained, because when I worked with him, he felt like I had a lot of experience under me as well. So he was the first person who told me that I was going through the right direction, and it was
Yeah.
such a relief, because, like, I never knew what I was doing. And when he told me that, it was such a big relief for me. And that was when I decided, like, you know what, if Shane Hurricane Helms says this about me, I'm pretty sure that I'm doing things right.
Yeah. So like fast forward to Tajiri, like Tajiri again, like Shane, absolute legend in the industry. What was the experience like standing across the ring from Tajiri?
I still remember meeting him in person. He is very soft spoken. He is very mysterious. He ripped me in a way where apparently he knows how to speak English very well. But when we met, he kind of pretended like he couldn't speak English, so he was just trying to rip me in that sense. But we started to get to know each other better through lunch, and then we met a lot. And the thing about Tajiri was he's very different in a sense of putting up a match as compared to Shane Eric and Helms. Tajiri was the kind of guy who would he would sit down with me, and the first thing he told me, you know what? I know I'm a lot more of a vet than you are. I know I have a lot more experience than you are, but right now we are colleagues. You are on the same level as I am. So I want you to be I want you to have equal say in this match. I want you to be as equally creative. I want you to put in your stuff. So tell me what you want to do. So I was surprised because with Shane Hurricane Helms, it was different because he said everything and he was calling me at the back and he was telling me, you do this. So my creativity was limited in some ways.
Yeah.
And I don't blame him because I was very green and I think he didn't trust me just yet. But Tajiri, after he needed to watch my match before he wanted to wrestle me. Like when I wanted to book him, he was like, "Do you have your match that I can watch?"
Yeah.
So I sent him my match with the Hurricane. That was when he thought, "Okay, all right, so I'll do it with you." So when he came down, we sat together and said like, "First things first, tell me what you want to do. I'll make you look like a champ." And second thing he taught me was in pro wrestling, whatever you see in a ring is emulated, and if someone tries to stiff you, you knock the shit out of them back. Like never never take potatoes. Like you always need to give back the seats because I do believe that the Southeast Asian industry is still green, so everyone wants to look like a badass, and it ends up with them sniffing the shit out of each other unnecessarily. So Tajiri's advice was, if someone stiffs you, just beat the shit out of them, especially because you have shoot background. Shouldn't be so nice. He was telling me you shouldn't be so nice. If someone hits you, hit them back even harder. So all right, cool. So we sat down, we planned our match. We were calling it at the back for like about 10 minutes before we went out. So it was nerve-wracking for me because with Shane Hurricane Helms, we kind of went through the match earlier on.
Yeah.
Like we arrived, we met each other, shook hands, sat down, called the match and whatnot. But with Tajiri, he didn't want to talk to me. He was warming up, was doing his stuff. And just before our match, he came up to me, all right, so let's talk. So I was like, damn. So that was the first time of me doing a match, mainly calling it on the fly, because he wanted it that way. He wanted to do it. He wanted to teach me the experience. It was very, very fun. So we went to the ring. He took real good care of me. He called everything up to a point when he started to guess out. So he asked me to take over. So I took over. I started calling and controlling the match as well. And after the match, he came up to me and said like, he asked me like, how many matches do you have? How many matches have you wrestled in? So I said, at that point, I had less than 20 matches, to be honest. Like when I wrestled Tajiri, and he was surprised. He said like, no way, like you wrestle like someone who has wrestled over 100 matches. So I was like, really? So that's the second time a legend told me that I'm doing things right. So that pretty much solidifies whatever that I'm training is something good.
Yeah. Is there anybody else on that list that you're wanting to bring out to Malaysia Pro Wrestling?
Before the sponsors dropped out, there were quite a lot of names. Like at that point, I was supposed to wrestle. What was his name again? He just got released by WWE at that point. It was Austin Aries.
Yeah.
Austin Aries, followed by Chavo Guerrero. Like I touched base with them, I checked their booking price and whatnot, and it was agreeable. But unfortunately, the sponsors dropped out and it didn't happen.
Yeah. I want to talk about that for a little bit then, because in business, nothing's ever straightforward. And there you've had some sponsors backing you, which you ended up getting Shane Holmes and you ended up getting Tajiri, but then they've gone, so you've kind of had to adapt your business style again. What was that change like for you?
It was actually very frustrating because in a way, it wasn't the sponsor's fault. We had a middleman who did the sales. So basically, he was the guy who would approach sponsors and try to get money and whatnot.
Yeah.
So eventually, I found out that he was giving us only a portion of what we were supposed to get, and he ran with the entire with everything else. So it kind of left us hanging. At that point, he was only paying the international superstars who were on the card, but he didn't pay all the local guys. He didn't pay for the rental and whatnot. He didn't pay for the camera crew, because he has paid enough to get the draw coming in, so he can get the crowd in. But everything else he ran away with. So that was something very hurtful for me and the crew, because at the same time I've lost the respect, and I've lost the some of my friends who were with me back then, because it was me when we set that small promotion up called AWE, Asia Wrestling Entertainment. I got a lot of close friends to help me out, like with the cameras, and to help me with the management side, and some of the wrestlers who were with me since the beginning. A lot of them started leaving me because they thought I was a part of it. But it was very, very hurtful for me as well, and it hurt the industry as well, because everyone became demotivated after the entire incident and ordeal. It's something huge, actually. Like, everyone in Southeast Asia knows about the story. But I always believe that if you get kicked down, you have nothing else to do but to get up and continue forward.
Yeah, that must be hard. And I've just been looking from like the AWE days. Was it yourself that had kind of control what talent you'd want to bring in, or was it essentially this middleman that was trying to get whoever he wanted?
It was my call, because the middleman, he was just a business guy. He has contacts to sponsors and whatnot.
Yeah.
So he sold our product as a wrestling show, and there were some sponsors who were buying into it. But unfortunately, because he ran away with everything, including the gate money and whatnot.
Yeah.
So ended up with sponsors not trusting us anymore. So everyone dropped out, and everything just fell apart.
I hope like eventually that may change and they may see the stuff you're doing with Malaysia Pro Wrestling. Was it yourself that picked out British Strong Style to come over then? Because I know the show that you faced Hurricane, you had Pete, Trent, and Tyler across.
It was a stack card. It was a stack card. I actually wanted to bring in Mustache Mountain, which was Trent Seven and Tyler Bate. But then they offered, it's like, hey, you know what? Pit Dunne is free on those dates, so maybe you want to bring him along. And I said, like, I don't think I can afford Pit Dunne. And we decided on a cost that we could afford. Yeah. And I was very thankful for that experience, because they brought him down, he brought his title down, and I think the show was filled, it was sold out mainly because of the British Strong Style, because they are part of the mainstream wrestling that people watch.
Yeah.
Especially youngsters. A lot of them didn't know who Hurricane was, but everyone knew British Strong Style. But it's okay. I mean, like, we managed to pull in the older crowd who knew the Hurricane, and we managed to pull in the younger crowd who knew the British Strong Style. So it was all good.
So recently got some great news that came out. You mentioned him earlier. Booker T told you, look, if you haven't got a scene, make a scene. And that's something that you've gone, and here you are 6 years later getting an invitation from Booker T to go down to America for a reality of wrestling. Like, first off, like, I can see like the pride in your smile there as we was talking about it. Like, how does that feel that Booker T, Hall of Famer, and somebody that inspired you to create the wrestling scene in Malaysia is now wanting you on his show?
Booker T is pretty much the nail in the coffin. Like despite having the Hurricane and Tajiri telling me that I work like a pro, like someone who is supposed to be like 15 to 20 years in the business. I still have self-doubt, because I've always thought that, you know what, maybe because I'm a promoter, and maybe because they want me to bring them back down or something. Like, I've always had this self-doubt. Like, I've always tried to find negative things that might bring me down. It's just one of my traits. And but like Booker T, he didn't have any reason whatsoever to say all those good things about me. So it happened in a way where I did this personal coaching session with him, where he watched my match and he gave me feedback of how to improve and whatnot.
Yeah.
So as we were watching the match, we started out with him very serious, like he wasn't smiling, and he was very he was very I was scared of him. I was intimidated.
He was working, yeah.
But as we were watching the match, he started smiling and he started asking me questions. I just tell me what's the role of a babyface? So I explained to him, And so, how do you think the heels should work? So I explained to him whatnot, and he just smiled even bigger, and it's like, you know what, you know your stuff. And then he started going on about out of all the matches that he've watched the entire month, like, mine was the only match that made him emotionally invested. So when he said that, like, I was like, no way. Like, no way. This is Booker T, like 2 times WWE Hall of Famer, saying this to me. And he went on saying that I am literally the definition of talent, and the way I work is beyond my years. Like, I work like someone who has been in the industry for over 20 years. Like, I know my stuff. And he says that he has seen guys in the industry who has worked for 15 over 20 years, like they still don't know what they're doing in the ring. And to hear him say that is very it's crazy. It was so surreal. Like, I wish I had a recording of it. But I couldn't, because he was the one hosting the Zoom session, so I couldn't record it. But it was crazy. He was saying all these things about me, like how he couldn't say anything bad about a match. It was perfect. The way I was working was perfect. I made the guy look amazing in the ring and whatnot. The only thing he had to comment was the match went longer than it should. And he said that this speaks volume on my talent as a performer. And that was when so after the entire coaching session, during the same session itself, he told me, like, you know what, I told my director, this boy is talented, like, I want to bring you down, so he'll contact you and discuss the details and whatnot, so welcome to the reality of wrestling. And I was like,
Wow.
no way. It's crazy.
What was your family's reaction when you told them that Booker T wanted you to join reality of wrestling?
Well, the first person I told was my wife. It was I think it was 5 a.m. at that time, because of the time zone difference. Told my wife, and she started crying as well, because it's like 6 years of struggle and 6 years of uncertainty, and finally you have someone like Booker T saying these things to you. So she was very proud of me. And then I told my sisters, and they were very excited as well, because like they grew up watching wrestling. They're still huge fans of wrestling. And what I love about my sisters is they watch wrestling as a fan. They don't try to become smart. They don't try to analyze too much and whatnot.
Yeah.
Just enjoy it as it is. So like for them, they were marking out as well to hear Booker T say such things and whatnot. And every time when Charmel, Booker T's wife, liked my she would usually like my stuff on Instagram. Like so every time when they see her name liking my stuff, they'll screen cap it and send it to me, like, hey, look, look who just liked your post and whatnot. So like everyone's very happy for me. My students are dumbfounded, like they cannot believe that this is happening as well. I am even more dumbfounded, like I can't believe what is going on. Like it's like a dream come true, basically.
No, I'm really looking forward to it, and it's something definitely check out. I'm excited to see you go on it, and again, it's something, like, not to blow smoke up your ass or whatever, but something you deserve, really. You've created a wrestling scene out of nothing, and then one of your students is in Australia, another of your students, first hijabi pro wrestler, came over to the UK, and now you're getting your turn. Hopefully it will be this year, and the pandemic will ease and we can start doing shows again. But it's exciting. And what's your mindset going into, like we mentioned earlier, what it's like when you work in different regions in Asia, but now you're going to be working a completely different region in a different continent in America. What is your thoughts about
that? So this is very interesting as well, because in Southeast Asia, I'm known as the Godfather of Malaysia Pro Wrestling. So I already have some weight behind my name. So every time when I make my debut in certain countries, they already know who I am. So everyone reacts accordingly. But I'll be debuting in America, where they haven't seen or heard of me before. And I'm pretty small as compared to the guys there, because I'm only 5'8", 5 feet 8 inches. I'm very small in size. the first thing I did was I went back to the drawing board. Like I sat down and I thought to myself, how can I appeal to the American audience? Like I sat down and reconstructed my character. How can I be more unique, but at the same time, someone who they can relate to and get behind? And I started working out like crazy as well. Put myself on a diet because I want to go there and make the best first impression that I can, because first impression is the lasting impression. So like for me, ever since I received the offer, I've done nothing but put 100% effort into my character, my work rate, and even my diet and my gym.
What advice has Booker T given you about you coming over to reality of wrestling?
We haven't had a chance to talk much after the offer. Like I've only been in touch with his wife as well as his director for Reality of Wrestling, Kevin. So there will come a time when he will eventually speak to me, and I'm very excited to hear what he has to say.
No, 100%. So, what other goals have you got in professional wrestling?
I think for now, I'm the kind of guy who always have realistic short-term goals first before I go for longer-term goals.
Yeah.
So the first thing that I want to do is I want to make a very, very good impression in Reality of Wrestling. I want to get over there. Like I want to be someone who the crowd loves if I'm a babyface, or someone who they hate as a heel. I want them to want to see more of me. So that's my first goal. Like just go there, make an impression, and I want them to want me keep coming back for more.
Yeah. If you try and think of like a little bit longer term, what will go with Malaysian Pro Wrestling first? What are your goals for MYPW?
I have never stopped. I'm looking for sponsors for Malaysia Pro Wrestling, mainly because we have done it before. So I'm pretty sure that I just need to brush up on maybe my pitching skills or whatnot, and maybe I need to position my PW in a place where these sponsors might see us as something valuable, that something worth investing in. So I've never stopped doing it. I've still been approaching companies and whatnot, and I do believe like one day we will eventually hit the jackpot. We will eventually get our sponsors, but until then, especially with the pandemic. What I plan to do is just gonna keep doing all this empty arena shows as much as I can, just churn out more content for people to indulge in, because I think one of the things that is lacking in Southeast Asia Pro Wrestling is content. I think the best out there is PWR right now, because they have contents like every single week, and it's so amazing. Something that I look up to them, and it's something that I want to do as well. So more content, try to get sponsors, and become great again.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it will. And you mentioned the empty arena shows. I want to touch upon that. Like, how does it feel for you to adjust to having no crowd there for your reactions, and how are you finding that?
All right. So what I tell my students when we want, because right now we're already on a planning stage, as soon as the government allows us to go to our gym, because right now gyms are not allowed to open. The first thing that I tell them is I want you guys to perform like you would in front of a crowd, because when you go into the ring, leave your heart inside it. Like you need to perform 110%, give your all, and you have to remember that even though there's no one watching you live, there's still the camera, and there'll be 50,000 people who's going to watch you online. So you have to put your heart in it and try to translate that emotion through the camera, so the people at home watching you might be able to feel what you're trying to tell.
Yeah, no, 100%. So, long-term goal for yourself as a pro wrestler, what's on that bucket list? Is there any countries you wanting to travel to wrestle? Are you wanting to be that first Malaysian wrestler on WWE? Like, what's your goals?
Like honestly, I believe now, just based on how realistic it is, I do believe that out of everyone in Malaysia, Phoenix is the first person who will make it to WWE first. Wholeheartedly believe that, because she is unique, she's marketable, she's a package, she's just ready to go out there and make a name for herself. She even made the Forbes list, so it's like she's just ready to be there. It's just a matter of time. But I think the first thing that I want to do is I want to become the first Malaysian to be well known in the independent scene first. Because for me, like, I do believe in dreaming big, in targeting things big, but I also do believe in realistic goals. The first thing I want to do is I want to get to reality of wrestling, maybe win championships there, and maybe make a name for myself in other promotions like ROH or maybe Dragon Gate or anywhere that I can go to,
Yeah.
and then maybe NXT.
No, 100%. So let people know, where can they find you on social media? Where can they find Malaysian Pro Wrestling, and where can they support you? Where can they watch your content?
I do believe that, especially of right now, because due to the pandemic, I think this is the perfect time to create as many content as possible,
Yeah.
and this is the perfect time for us to let the fans know who we are. I don't know why I feel like it's a bit weird calling my fans because I don't see myself at that level yet where I should have fans. I would call them my supporters.
Yeah.
So I do believe that this is the perfect time for my supporters to get to know me, what I believe in, my values and my philosophies, and as well, I just want to be someone who inspires people. I want to be someone who is a good role model to everyone who watches me.
Yeah. So where can they find and watch your content?
Sorry?
Where can they find your shows to watch online or anything like that?
So my personal stuff, you can follow me on Instagram. It's at Shaukat Fonseca. I'm very active there. But for more Malaysia Pro Wrestling stuff, you can go to our Facebook and just look up Malaysia Pro Wrestling. We also have a Patreon where we come out with more exclusive content. So feel free to join us and subscribe to us on Patreon as well, because it really helps.
No, 100%. Well, again, thank you for coming on the show. It's probably been one of my more enjoyable ones because I've learned so much more about the Malaysian pro wrestling scene. And again, the best of luck with reality of wrestling. And yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes. And we'll have to get you back on maybe a year's time after you've had your experience with reality of wrestling. We'll get you back on the show and we'll talk about that experience.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure talking with you.
Yeah, thank you.
Always use your head.